Today we're 3D printing and assembling the Rose hand cannon from the computer game Destiny 2. And seeing as this thing has the name Rose, I thought we'd use a rose-colored filament to print it. And this baby is huge, but there's actually not too many parts to it, so this is going to be really fun to put together, and at the end of the day, it's going to look incredibly good. And be noted that I'm going to deviate from the official instructions on how to put this together, but I'll let you know where I deviate so you can actually do it correctly if you want to 3D print this yourself. And all the files are free, and there's a link in the description below. The original designer here has done an amazing job, especially with the tolerances. Everything just goes together perfectly. And I'm starting off with this piece, which just has 3 inserts that allow you to line it all up. Now, this is not supposed to be the first step. You're supposed to construct the entire front section and then put it into this along with the part that spins, and then put these 2 bits together to kind of lock it all in place. And we're not going to do that because I want the glue here to be well placed in. I want to be able to kind of clamp it all up. And if the front's on it, if the spinning bit's on it, it's going to end up being really hard to do that. So I want to be able to just clamp it all down and make it straight off the bat, which means we're changing a little bit of how we're building this later on. And I don't think this is a better way to do it, but I think it's a simpler way, because imagine me clamping all this up while having everything else attached. It would be quite difficult. Now we're moving on to the front, and we've got one insert here that just helps us with alignment, and then we have another piece that is kind of cosmetic that goes into here. And again, tolerances on this model are just perfect. I only needed to do minor cleanups, and for once, I didn't actually use the hammer. I quite like using the hammer when building stuff in 3D printing, even though it's probably not the wisest thing to do. And yeah, this was just a push-in piece, and just added some glue to make sure it ain't going to come out. And perfect. Then we have our bottom piece here. So we got an insert. We're going to glue this up and then connect the 2 pieces together. And these are actually probably some of the largest pieces I've actually printed on the 3D printer when it comes to the horizontal size, and they need to be placed in diagonally to fit in the build plate. But it means you end up with this massive front end that just looks really good. And by far, this is biggest of this type of model that I've ever printed. Now we'll go back to this piece that we put together earlier, now that the glue has completely dried, and we have a bunch of cosmetic items to add. And we'll talk about the fact that I'm using obviously pink here for something that in game is not pink, but I figure, you know, computer game, we can have skins, and this is going to be a cosmetic variant. And then all these parts are super easy to attach. They've got really nice inserts to line them all up, and for the most part, they're very simple on where they actually go. And this one on the top actually has a perfect shape for it to drop into. So make sure that initial piece is lined up so you can get it all in there without any issues. And then we have the last piece here, which has 2 inserts to attach it. And this is a pity that this model doesn't have any moving parts, but to me, I really don't need that. It is cool that people are adding those things in now, but I don't really need it overall, because this is mainly, of course, for display and just looking cool. Now, there's one part here that I haven't attached, and you're supposed to do this when you are connecting the 2 halves together if you're doing this in the correct order. But in my version of the instructions here, I'm going to add this in differently and modify this piece so that we can assemble it in a slightly, hopefully, easier way. Now we move on to a new part. And this is really simple. We've got our main piece and then another part to attach. This is a matte filament I've gone with. So I actually decided to give this a clear coat just to make it different from the rest of the body, so that it would kind of stand out and be actually nicer to hold, because the matte one, of course, is just dry when you're holding it. The glossy one has a nicer feel. And this is super simple. Just simply glue it onto the bottom there, add some bands on for some tension, and you're done. And then we're going back to the front, and we're adding 3 cosmetic items that don't do anything, but they look really good, and they all fit in beautifully. And I also used my elastic bands again just to add tension to all these parts so that it would all nicely glue up. And then we have one little part, and then this front section is completely done, and it is this long piece. Now I cheated here. It's supposed to have a nub on each side of that piece, but I actually just rotated it, sank it into the bed, and then printed it, so it would be a super simple print. But it means one of the nubs on one side is just gone. But I always like a simpler 3D print than anything, you know, that gets more complicated with more and more supports and stuff. And it came out looking great. Now, while that glue is drying, we're going to go back to this piece and just simply attach this onto here. And this is a super simple attachment. Just hold it long enough for the glue to set and you're great. Now we need to bring these two parts together. Now this is where I'm deviating big time from the instructions. Like I said, that front part is supposed to be put in there when you attach the two halves of the body together, and then it all comes together at that point. But because there's a spinning bit in the middle, because there's, preferably clamping everything down so it sets really well, I just figured I didn't want to do that. So because of that, we're going to make some differences. I also love the setup here because that spins so freely. It's a really nice design and super simple, and I've never seen anyone actually do it, but it works so well and the cylinder spins crazy good. So in order to actually get this thing to go together, you can see here that I cut this piece down by about 3 millimeters. Now I can go ahead and bring all this stuff together, which I don't think is necessarily better, but I do think it's a little bit less of a guddle. And as soon as we get the kind of right angle here, we're able to just push it in, and in that way, we've got a perfect, finish to it all. Now, as you might notice, I've not got any glue in here right now, so this is a test fit. I'm just making sure that I'm not totally messing this up at this point in the build. And if you decide to follow my crazy instructions, I would recommend doing the same thing where you're just going to put it together without any glue so you can take it apart if need be and not break the whole freaking thing for sure. But anyway, now we have glue in, only on the top and bottom, making sure that we're not going to interfere with the spinning action, as of course we don't want to glue that up. And then it's just a matter of lining this all up as best we can before the glue sets, and hopefully it will now be complete. And now we'll move on to the conclusion for this build. So this was a joy to make this. It really was. The whole experience was superb from start to finish. I would say if there was any kind of changes I could make or recommend to the actual maker, who I believe has a completely different language from me, so I don't think they're ever going to see this, or at least understand it. I would say that the front section, perfect to print, like absolutely perfect to print, perfect to assemble. And then the whole back section, perfect to print, perfect to assemble. It was putting them together that was the issue. If this insert was actually longer and went all the way through into the front part, and there was another insert added above that, I think you could just plug these two parts together rather than the way it's set up to kind of be pushed in with the assembly of the kind of main base part earlier. I think that'd be amazing. And it would mean sacrificing the right angle design part there that obviously does come from the original in-game version. So maybe that is the reason it doesn't have that setup. But other than that, this thing is so cool. And I think it feels good, it looks good, and it's just huge. So major props to the original designer. This was so much fun to make.